Hello everyone, this is Raven's Mapping. Welcome for the military summary of the day of 19 March 2023. So we're going to start with the major information of the day, which is, of course, the major Ukrainian attack towards Robotine. So in this attack, as you can see, you have here on my map the mapping of the 1st January 2023 in orange red, and lately these two last days you had intensive fights from the Ukrainian sides, moving from Orkhiv to Novodanilivka toward Robotine, and reports have shown yesterday that the first attack against the Russian forces has failed, but today you have new reports of an even bigger attack towards Robotine, and there is no much more information about that. But as we saw this week, um, there is a lot more attacks coming from Ukraine toward the Russian side, and it could mean that Ukraine is trying to force Russia to move more forces here and relieve the Donbas front, because I think Ukraine right now is in difficult position in the Donbas area, especially at the Avdiivka front, the Bakhmut front, and the Kremenaya forest front. Um, so the goal for Ukraine here, I think, is to um, be on the move, show to their allies that Ukraine isn't losing, and also to force Russia to concentrate more troops here and thus concentrate less forces around Donbass and Donetsk region, especially. Moving away towards the Velikaya Vasilivka, no, Velikaya Novosilka, sorry, and Vuhledar fronts. So at the Velika Novosilka front, as you can see, from the 1st January to now, today, there has been pretty big push coming from the Russian. Uh, I know not a lot of people map it like that, but there has been reports of attacks toward Borlatske, Vilnepolye, Zelenepolye, and Novopol, and also attacks and videos coming from northwest of Vremivka and Neskuchne. Um, so I guess the town of Novoselka has been captured, but no information really came out about it, or I did not find lots of information. But it makes sense for me to map it like that, and also the terrain here doesn't look like it could be still Ukrainian, because as you see there is these river beds here all around the northwestern parts of Novoselka. So if the Russians are able to push towards Alinopole and push toward Vilnopole, uh, that means that they already have Novoselka, because they are already in this area, and it's a straight terrain here. But for Ukrainians, these places are riverbeds, so it's dangerous for them to move here. They can't hold Novoselka if Russians are already around here to attack Vilnopol and Zelenopol. Moving toward the Vuhledar front, this front is a lot more shadier, I would say. It's hard to find precise information, but from the geolocalization I made, I know that Ukrainians are here. Um, so the previous mappings I had before I started this channel show that the Russian were up until here, and then the front line like one goes down to here, because here, as you can see, there is the mine, the Donbas mine. Um, but apparently the Ukrainians are here, but the Russians are nearby. The geolocalization that has been made recently has shown that the Russians are in this tree line here, and also in this tree line and these tree lines, but not the entire tree line, just half of it. Um, Here I mapped it like that because recent videos, and when I say recent, it's like few days ago, has shown that the Russians were fighting in this Dachas area. But since these Dachas are too exposed to Vogledar, I think they aren't like staying here like for multiple days. They have to attack from some part like here, move here, and then attack every days, for example. But I don't think they can hold this area for multiple days. That's why I won't make it um, as a Russian, as long as the Russian don't have a comfortable place to sit in. And since this area is completely destroyed, I won't make it Russian for now. Um, Recent videos as from recent days have shown that Ukrainians have perhaps moved here, attacked here as usual. So this front is really weird because you have on one side Russian attacking these Vglidar dachas and Ukraine attacking these dachas here. So yeah, very very weird fronts. On my mapping, as you can see, this area is shown as Russian. I have my reasons for that. On multiple occasions, you can see that uh, Vogo Voyavlenka is is attacked by artillery uh, pretty much often, and the distance is pretty far. Uh, there is no towns here, no major towns here, so it could be possible that the Russians are in this area, as I said, but since there is no villages here, uh, there is no reports of Russian capturing anything. So, and also my reasons for that is that there is this riverbeds here that could make a really good natural border between the Ukrainian forces and the Russian forces. Because I really don't understand how um, the Ukrainian Zivogo-Yavlenka can be attacked this often by artillery shelling if the Russians were just here or at Pavlivka. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Moving on to the next front, which is the Avdiivka front. So on my mappings, this blue layer is the uh, the most likely path of the Russians. That's the for me the areas that the Russians will most likely concentrate their forces in and capture to achieve operational encirclement. As you can see from the northern part of Avdiivka, the Krasnogorovka front is pretty much already reaching the goal I've set like the goal I think the Russian have. Um, I think in the next day or the next 2 days, the Russian will have also this part. This part, I don't know if they will reach it soon enough next week because it's actually higher ground. It's a mine. As you can see, this area is about 160 meters height, and here it's 2060 meters height. So there is 100 meters difference. And since it's a mine, I think there is a lot of tunnels and other stuffs like that for Ukrainians to hide in. For this part, for Kamyanka, I didn't honestly believe Kamyanka would hold this long, but it seems that the Russians and the Ukrainians are still fighting in here. So we'll see, but I don't know if Ukrainians will be able to hold any longer because Kamyanka is actually in a very bad position. There is a river here, small riverbed here, another riverbed here, as you can see, trees. Um, the elevation is in Russia's favor. Here, the elevation is 20 meters higher than here. And then you have here this forest, another riverbed, the lake here, the small hills. I don't even know if you can call this a hill, but anyway, Kamyanka is really set too much afar from Avdiivka to be held any longer. For this part of Avdiivka, I really doubt. As you can see, my mapping, my previously believed my, my prediction for Avdiivka encirclement doesn't even stop here. But reports show that the Russians are in the green area here. But I still think that this area here won't be held any longer by the Russians. It's not a good place to hold because if you look closer, there is no river, there is no tree lines here, no tree lines here. There's a lot of small houses in there. There's a big tree line here, but too close to the small dachas here. And here the tree line is very sparsely popular. I don't know how you say, but there is very few trees. Um, I don't think this is a good place to hold for the Russian. I don't even think, honestly, that there are any places here, but they have the control of the area. But I really don't think they will manage to like hold this place if the Ukrainians make a counteroffensive. The only way they could do this is by holding this big tree line and using the lake here, the hills, to control this whole area and then be able also to have fire control here forever. But first they will have to attack Kamyanka to capture Kamyanka. On this part, it will be the most difficult part for the Russians because there is less nature boundaries, less accessible natural boundaries for the Russian. There is a lot of exposition for the Russians each time they try to attack the place. For Opitnoye, for example, uh, this place is Russian, but the field next to it isn't. The Ukrainians are here, still here, all around these square fields. For Siverny, it's the same. Uh, it's not a big town, yes, but if Russians capture this town, where will they hide? Because it's almost completely destroyed. It's flat. There is Tonenki next to it. There is Lastochkie next to it. That's Lastochkine next to it. And Avdiivka artillery can shoot at it. So it's really not a good place to hold. So the only way the Russians can manage to like capture the light blue area here is by managing to break through quickly and capture Tonenki, Severne, and Lastochkine very quickly, because after Lastochkine there will be a natural boundary, the river line. There is a lot of bigger tree lines to hide in, and also they would have completely or almost completely at least cut off the Ukrainians for Avdiivka. And concerning this part, I don't think the Russian will be able to capture this area because I don't know how to explain that. It will be too hard for them to stretch their troops all over here, considering if they, for example, manage to capture Stepove, which they attacked yesterday, um, there would be code over multiple sites. On this area, there is industrial plants. They can be attacked from this part, from all the tree lines around it, from Semyonovka, for Berdichny, and from also the roads here, and from the troops coming from this Novobakhmutovka and Ochertine. Um, and concerning this front line, in the recent days, and it's been like 2 or 3 weeks that the Russians um, are almost multiple times a week attacking the city of the town of Novokalinov, and which means that they are also in this area. Um, my difference with my mappings and the other mappers is that um, they don't really show what uh, is actually happening in the ground, more what information are given. Let me explain. When uh, when troops, soldiers are uh, fighting, attacking a town like this one, um, it means that they are close to it. It's not like uh, the troops can't go from Novobakhmutovka and attack all the way to Novokainova each date, you know? It's not possible. Uh, because each time they will do this trip toward Novkalinov, it will be too dangerous. They will get killed. They will get the Ukrainians will then. It means that the Ukrainians will be in this tree line, this tree line, this tree line. It's not possible. If the Russians are able to attack Novokalinove, it means that they are in the tree lines nearby the town. So I really believe my mapping is correct, and on multiple occasions my mapping has been shown correct by different geolocation from Deep State UA or other sources. On this front line, there is absolutely nothing, as usual, nothing around New York or Toretsk, but there has been reports of a heavy artillery fire around here. Um, Also, interesting thing in the recent days, there has been reports of attacks from Ukrainians toward Klishevka, and I don't know how I could map it, but I think it means that uh, the Ukrainians are now pushing back the Russians who were attacking Bilagora, uh, because in the recent days there has been a lot of reports, and recent weeks I mean, there has been reports of Russia attacking Belagora, Dievka, and other cities like that. But now it says that the Ukrainians are attacking to Klishevka, so I don't really know what's how they. It means that the Russians here are moved out of it or been repelled, and I think the most likely mapping I could do would be this one, because let me explain you why. First of all, you have to understand that uh, you don't capture a forest like that. It's not this easy. You don't move toward Klishevka like that, crossing the canal, crossing all these small forest patches. It's not possible. So I think that the most likely uh, path for the Ukrainians is that they manage to attack from this riverbed and capture the adjacent forest patches uh, around the riverbed, and are now next to the canal and are attacking the Russian in this tree line around the canal. So I think this is what they are meaning when they say what the Ukrainians mean when they say that they are attacking toward Klishevka, because I really don't think they are already crossed the area, and I don't think that the Russians have really managed to be pushed out of all these positions, especially not this forest line, and and not also all the Stupochny area, because there is still fightings towards Stupochny and sometimes near uh, Predechnie. So this is for me the most likely mapping, but I could be wrong, and I'm still myself unsure if they are still here. So perhaps the mapping is actually like that. And you know what? I'm going to put the mapping like that because honestly, there is too few information these times about this area, and perhaps the Russians either have completely left this side. Perhaps the Ukrainians mean something else when they say that they have attacked towards Klishchevka. So that's how I'm going to keep the mapping. I'm going to leave it like that, and I'm not going to move out the borders uh, near Dilyevka because it's been just a few days ago that Dilyevka has been attacked again. So I think they are just holding, the Russians are holding these positions thanks to the tree lines here that protects them. Now coming at the Bakhmut front, there has been geolocation of Ukrainians, I think here, yes, that has been shelled. There have been pictures of these exact locations shelled a lot by the Russians, which means that the Ukrainian are still here. From Ivanivsky or Krasnoye or Ivanivsky, I think that the Russians are here because there has been a lot of reports, daily reports of Russian attacking in Ivanivsky, but there is nothing more. I think. I also think that this part of the forest is very contested and not safe. So the Russians aren't really in it in the Bakhmut front. The fightings are all concentrating in this area, and I think that by today the whole place can be mapped already as Russian presence. Um, Perhaps yes, there are still fightings in this area, but the Russians are here, they are here, they are here, and they are also fighting in there. Perhaps if there is still fighting, there is no information yet today, but they are fighting here, so which means the Russians are here. Coming from the eastern side of Bakhmut, there is no much information about Russia trying to cross the von Bakhmutovka River. Or yes, I don't no, the Bakhmutovka River. Sorry. And beside that, there is no much information about the Azom plant. There is no information if it has been totally captured or if there was any advances in the Chromove parts of Bakhmut. There has been intense fightings, and the Ukrainians previous days attacked Chromove, this part, and has been geolocated in this forest, but the assault was a big failure because they basically either has been all killed or so those who survived had to leave this area, and the Russians then moved back in this forest and moved back then in this part of Chromov, whereas the Ukrainians are holding these parts and especially everything around this lake, for example. I really don't think that the Russians are in these forests either. Moving to the Bogdanovka front, um, there has been just attacks reported, but no advances. Um, in the Dubovo-Vasilievka, nothing. Grigorievka, it's very interesting because once again there is multiple attacks every day, so the Russians who are in these forests are attacking from there, from this opening, like they are in this forest and shooting uh, toward Grigorievka, and this is the only part where they are attacking from. But I think it won't take long up until the Russians will take this forest line and this one and this forest patch, because there has been an information today, very interesting information, that Novomarkove, sorry, has been there has been attacks toward Novomarkove. So, as you probably know, it means either that Oryehovo-Vasilyevka has been completely captured by the Russians, but there has been no info yet. All I know is that half of it is Russian controlled, and I think that this forest patch is still Ukrainians, and there is a lot of forest patches and a lot of tree lines here, so it's not a good moment to say that Oryehovo-Vasilyevka has been captured. But if if there has been attacks toward Novomarkove, it means that the Russians who were in this area attacking Grigorievka and attacking uh, and being in the south eastern part of Oryehovo-Vasilyevka has managed to capture the forest by moving down the riverbed. And from the riverbed, they captured the forest, and with the forest, this tree line patch. And from this tree line, they then can move and attacks attack Novomarkove. But when I say attack, I don't mean that they crossed the canal. I mean that from there they can send reconnaissance battalions and shoot toward Markove or use drones and such things. But I really don't. Uh, I really fail to understand from this one what did the Ukrainians mean by Russians attacking Novomarkov. Perhaps it's a mistake. Perhaps they just base their namings by the closest town from where the Russians are, meaning that if the Russians were here and attacked Ukrainians in this tree line, since it's closer to Novomarkov and Orihov-Vasilyevka, they mapped it at Novomarkov. Yesterday, there has been reports of attacks toward Privilya. Uh, I have nothing else to say about that. Fightings around Zalizniansky. Um, in this area, there has been fighting reports as usual, but nothing really, really significant. Um, in the recent days, there has been geolocations of Ukrainians um, being shelled in Spornoye or Spirne, but the city is still Ukrainian. And apparently, there has been reports of Ukrainian or of Russians holding this area, so my mapping is correct. Um, in Bilogorovka front, it's interesting because in the 1st of January, I was mapping this place, the right place, as Russia. But no, today, in the 19th of March, so the orange front green line, I mapped it like that. So either the Russians has been repelled, either they were already always here and never moved more than the green line. Because I actually geolocated from a video uh, Ukrainians being shelled exactly in this place, meaning they hold at least all these three lines, and these ones too, I think. Um, and the three lines that the Russians actually hold are these ones. So each time you hear fightings toward Belogorovka, it's these Russians here attacking those in these three lines, attacking the Ukrainians in these three lines. Also, there has been videos of fightings around here, and beside that, there is not much information about this front. This front line is very weird. There is no much information, and it's always the same thing. So in the Kremenaya Midgrinder, in the Kremenaya forest, the worst front to be in, as usual, there is unreported fightings in this front, uh, which is a shame because this front is actually worse than the Bakhmut front in terms of horrors and in terms of manpower. Because there is actually, if you look at, for example, Deep State UA, which is a Ukrainian sources map, there is actually a lot more troops in this whole area, in the whole Crimea area, uh, than in most other parts of the front line. And this is a front that nobody talks about. So my analysis of this front is that Crimea is a very important part for the Russians because it's a crossroads. There is the highway coming from north and these highways. All these highways going everywhere to feed the front to it's like a central point for the Russians to hold, and the Ukrainians are trying to use the fact that there is a this forest that directly this forest directly gives into Kremlin or Kremenaya, and they use this because they think that if they manage to infiltrate the whole forests, they can directly then attack assault Kremenna. But this has fired back at Ukrainians because what happened during the winter is that the forests become white, the ground will become white, and from drones, um, the Ukrainian forces weren't hidden because you would think that in a forest it's the best part to hide from artillery and drones, but during the winters, each videos you found online of Ukrainians being shelled in this forest showed that it's they are very showing in this video. You don't hide under the forest, and the trees here aren't like big trees; they're pine trees, and these pines are like shading their needle leaves during the winter, and it doesn't hide the Ukraine. Moreover, there is a huge concentrations of artillery, thermobaric fire for and a lot of newer Russian weapons, such as the Terminator, which you almost always seen here. The Terminator is actually working in this area, and this front line is a huge disaster for the Ukrainian forces who know first thought it will be an easy win, but they did not manage to win in the needed time. And now it has fired back at them because if they move back from this area, this forest, it will be the opposite for them. But the Ukrainians don't have as many artillery as the Russians. So this time, if they move back from the forest, the Russians will be able to move and capture the whole forest and directly assault Yampol, Torske, Zarichne, and especially Liman. Moving at the Yampolovka and Terni fronts, there has been fightings as usual. I map it like that because, I mean, it's logic. Terni is being attacked. Uh, if it's attacked, I don't think it means that the Russians most mappers map this place as Russian, but still say that Terni is attacked, which means that, according to them, the Russians who are here, for example, are moving here, all this place without being killed to attack Terni. I don't think it's possible, and it's not what happens on the front. If you know a bit about how people fight, how the modern warfare is, you don't move this much without being spotted by enemy drones and artillery and reconnaissance scouts. And again fighting at Yampolovka too. Um, Most interesting fact about this front is that the Ukrainians have managed to pierce this Lugansk and Donetsk border, um, because in the 3 days ago, actually, the videos show that Ukrainians moved from this area to here and attacked these forests, but got shelled. And the videos made us think that the assault was a failed assault and that the Ukrainians has been pushed back. So I moved the border 2 days ago back to this, but newer videos from yesterday show that this uh, electrical plant, I think, has been shelled and bombarded by uh, thermobaric flamethrowers and a lot of artillery and grad, um, which means that the Ukrainians are in this general area. So we'll see what happens if these Ukrainians in this bridgehead can manage to move toward Chelapopovka. But honestly, looking at the video, there is not enough Ukrainians, I think, to be able to hold another forest. I think it's really not good for a not good position because they sent in a lot of troops. And from the videos, you see that a lot of vehicles, armored personnel carrier for the Ukrainians have been destroyed already. So we'll see in the next coming days. In this fortress, I call it a fortress because this is a riverbed that um, is completely surrounded by the 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 forest lines, and the Ukrainians are actually holding in these places. The Russians haven't managed to conquer this nature fortress, but and I think they won't be able to do so uh, up until they actually manage to conquer Nevsky and cut the Ukrainians from this area because this nature fortress, as I say, is actually um, the the aim or the supply comes from Nevsky, and Nevsky is attacked pretty often these times. So the Russians are most likely here already. Coming at Makivka, there is fighting, but no advances reported. And coming at this whole north of Svatove front, Kuzemivka, Volodymyrivka, there is no much information about this, and no much reports about advances. And at the Kupiansk front, there is still a lot of fightings, and the Ukrainians are actually holding longer than we thought in this area, in this general area. There's still a lot of fights in these areas, and they are using the fact that there is no forest here, for example, to still hold a presence in from to attack from these forests toward the Russians who are here and also hold this forest next to Gryanivka. And beside that, there is no much information, no more informations about any future putsch against the Ukrainians. But in the end, all we can see about these last days is that the Bakhmut front is slowing down a bit in its encirclement, but it is accelerating in its conquest of the city because the Russians, uh, Wagner private military, is advancing very fast inside of Bakhmut, but seems to have stopped, to have slowed down its advances around of Bakhmut. My I think that in the coming days and months, the Avdiivka situation will get worse, and I don't think it will be harder for the Russians to capture Avdiivka, to encircle Avdiivka than it has been for Bakhmut. Because on the Avdiivka front, the geography is actually in favor of the Russians, and Avdiivka is just next to Donetsk, so the supply is like just next to it. It's not like for Bakhmut. On the Vuhledar front, I don't think there will be any advances, especially considering that the commander here isn't a very experienced or like there has been a lot of reports from the front of Russian soldiers saying that the commander in Vuhledar is not the kind of commander to be competent in this new meta of fighting, in the new modern fighting. The commander here is actually just sending troops to their death. And for the Zaporizhia front, I don't think that the major Ukrainian attack will give anything. They are trying to move toward Tokmak, but it's too far, and the area is there is too many defense lines. I really don't think it will lead anywhere. So that is all for today. Today's update on the Ukrainian war. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed this video. I will try to make multiple video a week, but don't expect me to update every day. Also, I would like to insist on the fact that I am not, uh, I do not pretend to be neutral, but I fully pretend to not map because I wish the Russians or this or that part will be here, but I will really map it because I want to know where exactly the troops are, and I know that my mapping differs a lot from most mappers and a lot of official mappers, I would say, but I have my reasons and I have my sources. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. See you for the next video. Goodbye.